I'd like to call the meeting to order, and our first order of business is asking Alderman Davis to do the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Most loving and merciful God, we ask that you give us wisdom, that you give us courage, and that you give us the peace of knowing that we are going in the right direction for Southport. Amen.
So the next thing on the agenda is the mayor's comments. These are just really short summaries of what's going to happen here. So obviously after that we have the public comment. What's not on this agenda, and this agenda is pretty full, and there's things that we've been talking about for a while, so we're hoping to reach some conclusion. And you know, if you notice on the back end of it, there's a whole big thing about we're going to go into closed session over a number of issues to try to resolve stuff and move forward. But what's not under here is House Bill 1063 and House Bill 1064 and the letter from the commissioners and other pieces of information like that. Yes, regardless of what social media might say, yes, we are aware of it. The league called us the moment that those two first bills, 63 and 64, came off. We're on speed dial with them from last year and during the legislative session. We've had multiple conversations with people over that, and your city officials, this whole board is going to be working on that issue. So I just want to let you know that we are in fact tuned in.
Rich, they may not know what you're talking about.
Oh, so let me back up a little bit. So 1063, House Bill 1063 would prevent Southport, specifically Southport, from enforcing the tree ordinance in the ETJ. More importantly, 1064 would strip us of the ETJ completely. And it's a bill, those two bills are targeting Southport. Then there's a letter from the Board of Commissioners to the legislators asking that all ETJs in Brunswick County be removed. And so all not just Southport, but we all would get removed. So those issues are out there, and we're working on that, and it'll go on. Those bills will not whip through in the next day and a half. They'll take some time to get there, and we're going to have meetings to have those discussions. But yes, we are aware. And with that, we're at the public comment.
Christine Wright, 211 North Lord Street.
Okay, I guess it's on now. I was here earlier this week on Monday, so I'm going to keep it brief. I'm a fairly new resident to Southport, bought a home in 2017, took a year and a half with the contractor working full-time to bring it back to historic standards, and moved here full-time in 2020 and love it here. I admire all of the aldermen and the mayor. I don't know how you keep up with it all because I've spent the last few days trying to review where I missed the Taylor Park Field of Dreams concept. And I did email everyone, and I thank you, Heather, if you're here, who emailed me back after I sent it at 7 at some ungodly hour that night, and I thank you for your quick response and letting me be heard. I thought I missed something, but I can't find anywhere where that concept has been voted on by the aldermen. Now, I did find the survey from McGill & Associates that was done in 2017, Taylor Field had just been given to Southport at that time. And I know a lot of people weren't on the board at the same time. And like I said, I read pages and pages and pages of documents and went through a lot of board meetings. I did find that someone in Southport thinks we should have a bourbon tasting club. But there wasn't anything specifically about an all-inclusive park. And as we know, anything we do with our parks now, we do make them ADA accessible, although not all-inclusive, different definition, and I get that. I did read the 342-page Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan, which was adopted by the board at the beginning of '23. And it's not mentioned there either. Taylor Field is talked about. 2 site plans are given, say phase 1 and phase 2. There's a tiny little playground in the corner about the size of the restroom facilities that are there now. So I just wanted to make mention because somebody said, why are we talking about this again? You've talked to bankers in real estate, there was a lunch, and business owners, but you haven't talked to all the public. So just a comment. I hope we get to think about this a little longer before we jump to it. So, and that's all I have.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, do you mind, I think offline we had a conversation about a workshop. Could you just confirm that we are going to have a workshop related to Taylor Field?
We are, but we don't have a date yet.
Just so you can follow that conversation, we're planning to have a workshop just on Taylor Field. Bring everybody in, the citizens, everybody, and have everybody be able to have their say and have conversation with us at the same time. So that's on the agenda, and because it's budget season, we're doing like 4 to 6 meetings a week, and so we're just trying to find time to do it is the tough thing.
Kathy Cabral, 308 West. Cabral. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Cabral, and I live at 308 West Street. I would like to comment on the right-of-way. Big surprise. I think I read the pre-read and I read what is being proposed in terms of what will be allowed in the right-of-way. I think it goes a long way to addressing the issue. I think it does fall a little bit short in regard to the fact that there are a lot of hardscapes in the right-of-way now. People use them for parking. I can stand on my front porch and see 5 different hardscapes that are in the right-of-way, whether it's for walkways or parking or whatever. So I think in order to avoid the insanity that we have gone through for the last year or so, that you need to look at hardscape for walkways and parking, and just decide what you are going to allow as it relates to those before you finalize this proposal. But I think it does go a long way, allowing vegetative plantings, allowing the owners to replace them if need be. It would be great if we could get some warning if they are going to be disruptive so that we can remove them ourselves and protect them so that we can put them back. But that's what I would recommend. Thank you.
Maria Horton, 414.
Hi, I'm Maria Horton. I live at 414 North Burrington Ave. I'm here to speak about the right-of-way, but I would like to break it down a little bit before a decision is made. I think the right-of-way recommendations are great, and I appreciate the staff sitting down in this very tedious issue, but I would say to you that I think that the recommendations are incomplete. One of the things that's suggested is to keep everything the way it is or remove everything. And if I read it correctly, there's a 72-hour deadline from your notification of an encroachment. That seems somewhat both prescriptive as well as detrimental to the individuals who may be notified. There is another recommendation related to vegetation only. And like the previous speaker, there are hardscapes. Does that mean some will be allowed and some won't due to vegetation? Does that mean if you moved into the wonderful city of Southport early on and you have a hardscape, you get preferential treatment because yours is there while others are removed? The other is, once you start removing these, if you recommend that it's vegetation only, or you recommend removing anything that already exists, you have a situation in which you may be ruining the look and feel of the city of Southport. And I think that goes a long way towards what everyone here is trying to accomplish as a community. The other item that I think is missing is that the staff has recommended that alleyways be considered like right-of-ways. Under North Carolina General Statute 136-96, a road or street not used within 15 years after dedication is considered deemed abandoned. I also own property on North Caswell. There is an alleyway there that has a tree, which I measured just before today's meeting, that stands in the center of that 10-foot wide alleyway that is on my survey. It is 19 inches wide, diameter at breast height, DBH. And if I look at that, it says to me that the city of Southport has not really been accountable for the rights of way in any way possible, whether it means routine grass cutting and maintenance, whether it means alleyway maintenance. And so I think this decision is not yet complete and probably should be separated, rights of ways for homes and alleyways. Another example I understand on East Owen Street and Howe Street is an alleyway in which the former mayor has a building that sits squarely within the alleyway that was deemed existing there. And so again, alleyways may need to be looked at separately and differently. If I wish to build a home and that's deemed an alleyway and I honor it, what about the people on the remainder of Caswell in which their homes encroach it, in which they've built different sheds? Again, there's not an equal application of the law or code enforcement. And so I'm asking today that you consider that the recommendations by the staff are good but incomplete, and that perhaps the recommendations should be separated as we go forward in those items. There also is the opportunity, again, to reduce the right-of-way in the city of Southport. 99 feet goes far above the national average of 55 feet. At 75 feet, at 65 feet, at 85 feet, you might have fewer of the concerns from the local residents. Thank you very much for hearing me out, and I appreciate the time.
W.M. Godfrey, 4952 Captiva Court. Jack Daly, 4940 Captiva Court. Carolyn, 5485. I can't read that. Do you know what that says? I can't make it out. Old Baker, 5485 Old Baker.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Okay. My name is Carolyn Gore Hankins. I am a resident of Southport. I'm a native of Southport. And I'm here to address the concern about rezoning Highway 87. I'd like to express my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning of the property on Highway 87. As a resident of the area, I'm deeply concerned about the impact that it will have on the community. The ingress and egress to my home is Old Baker Avenue. One concern is the difficulty that it will cause getting across the highway at my home. I have some other questions for you. Are there plans to utilize Old Baker Avenue as a part of this new development? One of the other questions is, will there first be a traffic study for this development? Has there been an environmental impact study for the proposed development? Let me just back up a little bit. I'm sorry because I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with this. The proposed development is, the proposal is that the public, City of Southport Aldermen proposed a rezoning of R20HC to plan unit development. And in this plan unit development, they're suggesting that there will be at least 100 houses built in this plan unit development. I apologize, I didn't state that beforehand, but this is why I'm here with this concern. There will be a traffic jam. There's a traffic jam already. Has there been an environmental impact study for the proposed development? In my opinion, this construction of additional high-density homes will make the community less livable. With more vehicles on the road, not only will commute times be lengthened, but safety concerns will also escalate. Creating a pub will increase and compound the issue. Furthermore, the introduction of 100 homes to this 54-acre property will have a huge environmental impact in this area, destroying natural habitats and green life, diminishing plant life and species of our area. In conclusion, I urge you to reconsider the approval of rezoning this property. I feel that the current zoning will afford the developers to utilize the property in the way that it was planned and presently zoned. The developers of the property will move on to the next project, but we will be here to experience the outcome for years to come. I thank you in advance for your consideration.
Ronald Thompson.
Good evening. I'm Ronald Thompson. I live at 115 Thompson Drive here in Southport. And I'm here this evening for two reasons. Number one is I'd like to just speak to the opposing reasoning to change of the zoning of HC to a PUD there on Highway 87. But before having any design sketches or knowing what the development will look like is valid. Transparency in the planning process allows the community to understand and anticipate the impact on traffic flow and infrastructure, especially in areas with a growing population. Without this information, it is very difficult and challenging for the community to come together and even have questions that could and should be asked. Sometimes and not to say that it's not going to be a good thing, but we should have a look at it before making these decisions. if we blanketly give someone a rezoning on that much property, before you know what it's going to look like, as Carolyn said, we'll just be left here to deal with the fallout after it's done. So, with that said, that is my opposing reasoning to just give them a blanket or carte blanche on that piece of real estate. The other thing that I'd like to speak about this evening is I'd like to address our situation with the height requirements of the buildings here in Southport. I and others have acquired property here in Southport over the years because we believe in and we love this city of Southport. When we look at a property, when I look at a property to invest in or to hold, we look at its potential. What can this property do? What can be produced with this property? So we look at our ordinances and use that as a guide as to what we may be able to accomplish in the future. So I have a situation where I have one property that sits with a structure directly in front of it that is 40 feet high. Beside it, there's a structure that is 40 feet high. On the other side of the property is zoned commercial. Behind the property is zoned commercial. And with the height requirement being changed from 39 or 40 feet down to 30 feet, what it actually did was remove one floor from a structure that I was intending to one day build. And I was intending to do that because when I read our ordinance at the time, it said that my use by right was a height of 40 feet with 0 setbacks on the sides and a 10-foot setback in the rear. So when sometimes we make decisions, all of us, we make decisions and afterwards there are unintended consequences. And not sometimes the consequences aren't just with one property, but it's a flow through. And recently I met with our planning department and I showed a sketch of a building that I was looking to build, and I was told that, I was asked, how high is that building? I said, it's 39 feet. And I was told that the height requirement had been changed to 30 feet. And I was disappointed, but I can't say I was surprised because I wasn't, but I was disappointed because I was thinking to myself that when you have these kind of changes, and there are probably 7 or 8 properties at most that's in the commercial districts that are affected by this change, I would have thought that each property owner would have been contacted by mail to let them know what changes have been made so that they could come in and have a discussion on it. But to just to have a few hearings or whatever and not contact those property owners directly, I think I'm not the only one that missed that. And I think I understand what was happening during that time, and I think that the change that was made was somewhat made as a knee-jerk reaction. And I don't think it was made to harm anyone, but when you take an entire floor away from a building, you change that property's value. And when you change that property's value and you don't change the taxing of that property, it just doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. And the only people that I can go to is my board of aldermen, because what you all do is advocate for the rights that you've given me and the rights that you've given other people. And I was told by a friend the other day that, well, Ron, this is a different board. Well, I discount that out of pocket because this is the same board. We don't get new boards, we get new participants. We only go from meeting to meeting by adjourning. That's the only thing that happens different. Now, the other thing that I'd like to say is that we as the citizenry, we look to you all to make these decisions, and you made a decision to change it from 40 feet down to 30 feet. But when you see situations where it does not make sense, we have given and we give you the authority to go back and rescind and change things. It's okay to change. Sometimes we feel if we change, we admit that we did wrong. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It's what's best and what's fair. And I think that is the welfare, health, and safety of the community. If any of those three things were affected by changing it from 40 feet to 30 feet, I would agree wholeheartedly. But I know in my case, none of those things were in play. And so I appreciate it if you just, and I thank you for because I can tell you've been listening to me, and that's important. And I hope that you will give it more attention as you move forward, and I look to hearing from you all on what you think about what I've said here this evening. And again, thank you for allowing me to come and share and speak.
Could you just hold up for a second? Not you, sir. I'm sorry. I was talking to them. What should have been said in the beginning, and I didn't do it, is we have a public comments section coming up when we get to the property in question off of 87. And so if you're here to speak about that piece of property and the PUD and all of that, if you could hold your questions till we get to that public hearing section. But if you have questions or comments about anything else other than that PUD, this is the time to do that. So if the clerk reads your name and you're for that PUD issue, please just let her know so she can go on to the next person.
Okay, we just have 2 email submissions left. This was from Claudine Clark. My husband and I are retirees in Harbor Oaks. We recently noticed a feral cat living on our porch and became concerned about the potential for kittens and disease. Not having any experience with feral cats, I contacted an alderman and was given Kate Marshall's name. Once we met Kate and she went into action, all our worries and concerns were eliminated. She was totally responsive, professional, and so very well informed. At this stage in our lives, hauling and trapping a cat and or any wildlife is impossible. As a result of Kate's knowledge and partnership with River Road Animal Hospital, we now have a cat who was pregnant at the time of trapping, back and released with no worries about population growth and or disease. We have spread the word about Kate and the city's program on our social media subdivision platform in Harbor Oaks, as well as the other subdivisions at this end of town. We are seeing more and more wildlife being pushed out of their respective areas due to growth and appreciate our city officials providing a safe, humane, and responsive solution-oriented approach to animal protection and the issues at hand. Many of us being seniors do not have the ability to trap, haul, and release these creatures back into our community. Having Kate to help us is a blessing. Again, thank you for providing a much-needed service. My husband and I were delighted to meet and work with Kate Marshall. We appreciate the city's awareness as to the importance of this program and will continue to take care of the cat with no worry about disease and reproduction. The second is from Karen Boyan from 310 North Atlantic Avenue. Mr. Mayor and Aldermen, regarding the Taylor Field project, currently there is an ongoing comprehensive plan being developed. Would it not make sense to get this report before making any new commitments? At this past Monday's meeting, I was confused when a board member asked, where have the citizens been before now? I have gone back over several years of meetings and cannot find any citizen input meetings for this issue. Yes, the May 6th agenda did have the park project on the list. We thought it was going to be a discussion per the city manager telling us to come before the board. Again, our concerns fell upon deaf ears. You ask why citizens don't get involved. Perhaps this has been our experience time after time. There was a citizens input meeting on April 23rd, 2024. Residents who attended quickly realized that staff did not want our input. The city manager made it clear this meeting was just a formality and we should come before the Board of Aldermen. In addition, many of those who attended felt that this meeting was held to check off a required box on a grant application. I hope that wasn't the case. On page 18 of the current Parks and Rec Master Plan, it says, most Americans agree that preserving undeveloped land for outdoor recreation is important, aka green space. Pages 21 through 27 in the master plan, the city has listed out plans for the city parks in the future. I find it disconcerting that Taylor Field is not listed anywhere in this section. Page 21, why isn't the proposed park equipment part of the facility and parks development plan? If there is a plan to purchase more property for Parks and Rec, why not identify an area that would be shaded for this project? I have been tracking the temperatures in the field, and keep in mind it is only May. 5-6 Monday at 10 a.m., air temperature in Taylor Field was 86. Temperatures near the equipment was 94. On 5-7 Tuesday, 9 a.m., air temperature was 82 in Taylor Field, temperatures near the equipment 89. 5-8 Wednesday, 11 a.m., air temperature 89 degrees, temperature near the equipment 98 degrees. The center of Taylor Field is not shaded. I wonder how hot it will be in July. When I taught K-3 special needs children, they would not want to go out of doors when the temperatures were over 85 degrees. So the playground stood empty on those very hot days. Will this be the future of Taylor Field? Neither the Board of Aldermen nor the city manager have yet to produce a full site plan for the new design for the entire park. Recently, I added a shed to my backyard and had to produce an as-built survey of my lot. Does the city of Southport not have to live up to these same standards of development? There are 3 active real estate agents on this board who understand surveys and site plans, so I ask you where the completed site plan is. To the alderman who was quick to say there would be plenty of green space remaining, how do you know this without a site plan, including the new bathroom and additional parking? In closing, I look to our leaders to make hard decisions, but I do not understand why we are paying thousands of dollars for a comprehensive plan to be developed if you are not going to wait for it to be completed. Thank you for your time, Karen.
Okay, the next agenda item is the approval of the agenda, and I would like to entertain 2 motions before we do that. The first one is I would entertain a motion to remove agenda item number 1, which is a budget presentation. Is there a second? Is there any comment? All in favor say aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. The second one that I would like to entertain a motion on is to remove, or just move, I should say, not just remove, the approved consent agenda number 5, which is the budget amendment and reimbursement of the fire department equipment. And the reason why I'm asking that is it's a large sum of money, and I just want to have a minute or two to talk to everybody that we're spending that much money. And so I'm asking that it be put in agenda item number 1.
So move.
There's a motion made. Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
We've already ordered these vehicles.
No, my point is I want to make sure everybody understands that we've done that. I'm in favor of the whole thing. I'm not trying to re-litigate it. No, not at all. That's all I'm trying to do. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And the last one would be to move. Is to move the items number 3 and 4 and make them items 2 and 3. And the reason for doing that is that most of the people, a number of people in this room are here to listen to that part of the conversation.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, it's unanimous. I appreciate that. So the first item will be now the budget amendment reimbursement resolution. I'm sorry, the consent agenda. The approval of the consent agenda. They are the minutes of the regular board meeting on March 14th, the minutes of the regular board meeting on April 1st, the minutes of the closed session on April 10th, and the minutes of the special meeting on April 8th. And then there's a project ordinance update on the ARPA funds. Do I have a motion to approve that agenda? Second. Any comment? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we're at the topic of the fire department equipment. Oh, my agenda does not have that. Okay. It's a special recognition. No, there isn't any. That's what I thought. Okay. Okay. And the purpose of this is that we had a vote the other day for the fire department equipment, for 2 pieces of equipment, and they're expensive. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that we're paying for the equipment. We've ordered already a new fire truck for $1,526,000. It's a lot of money. And then we're about to order, if I
Sir, that's not correct.
Okay, we didn't order it yet?
It is ordered, but it was not $1.5 million. It was $1 million. We saved $230,000 by ordering it before May 1st.
Better yet. Thank you, sir. So the ambulance has not been ordered, correct? But we will be ordering it relatively soon. And if I've got the price in front of me correct, that, I use ambulance, is $455,000. Is that the correct number, Chief?
Actually, it's $417,000 and it has been ordered.
It has been ordered, okay. So we had the long discussion about whether we should buy it or not buy it. We handled that. Once again, my purpose for putting it on here is merely to have a conversation with the public to understand that it takes a lot of money to run a business. And this is a business, and that's what we've done. So with that, there really is no motion to do anything after that. Is the...
No, you have to approve the bank loan resolution, because now we're going to be doing this via bank loan, and there's tax implications which are new, which I wasn't even aware of with bank loans, and our bond counsel has written out resolutions that the board must pass in order to receive the bank loan, or the banks won't allow the loan to be done.
Unfortunately, he's got the wrong numbers on it. That he just told me that was...
I know, but look.
That's the right number?
Yeah, see for the loan.
Okay.
Add it together.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
considering the gasps that we all heard when you read those numbers, and the ones that we had when we first heard about this, it might be a good idea to ask Chief Drew to explain why we're doing this and why these cost so much money.
Once again, we're not relitigating this. We've done this. This has been approved. This is just to show you where your tax dollars are going.
Unfortunately, I don't have any notes with me tonight because this was all done on the 23rd of April, and I did a presentation then of why we're doing this. But we are replacing a 20-year-old rescue vehicle. That's the heavy rescue vehicle that we're replacing, and we're replacing a 14-year-old ambulance or 12-year. Say again? Okay, we're replacing a 2016 year model ambulance with over 100,000 miles on it. And if anybody wants to know why the cost is driven up so much on these vehicles, it's because during COVID, the federal government gave municipalities so much money. There is a huge demand right now for fire trucks and ambulances. Well, the cost it's doubled. The last fire truck we ordered was like $400 and some thousand. They have doubled in price. Most municipalities that got ARPA money put that money in the people that were on the front lines running calls and transporting COVID patients. But our city, we put it in the sewer department instead of giving it to emergency services. But most municipalities, they put it in emergency services and they purchased equipment out of that money that came from the federal government. That's what's driven the cost of the trucks up so much.
Thank you, Chief.
A question, just to further enlighten everybody. How do we pay for these?
The fire truck is actually paid out of fire fees. So it's not coming out of the general fund or the tax revenue that's collected, ad valorem taxes from the city. Now the ambulance will be paid for out of the general fund.
So I would entertain a motion to accept the following. The City of Southport Board of Aldermen reimbursement resolution declaring the intention to reimburse the cost of certain expenditures, whereas the city manager and the fire chief have described to the Board of Aldermen the desirability of adopting a resolution as provided under federal tax law to facilitate the city's use of financing proceeds to restore the city funds when the city makes capital expenditures prior to the closing on tax-exempt financing. Be it hereby resolved by the City of Aldermen of Southport, North Carolina, the following. Section 1, the project is the financing and acquisition of one heavy rescue vehicle, HRV, and one ambulance as identified at the April 23rd, 2024 Board of Aldermen meeting, and is now reflected in the fiscal year 2023-2024 amended budget. Section 2, the project is to finance the currently expected type of financing, which is subject to change, is an installment bank loan. The currently expected maximum amount to be financed for the project, the total of the two, is $1,526,025. $1,071,025 for the HRV and $455,000 for the ambulance. Section 3, the city presently intends and reasonably expects to reimburse itself for the original expenditures incurred paid by the city from the general fund within 60 days of adoption of this resolution for a portion of the financing proceeds. In Section 4, this resolution shall become effective upon the date of the adoption. Is there a second?
Hold on a minute, please, Mayor, I'm sorry. This is the wrong resolution. We had the revised one. Is there copies? Well, we had emailed out the revised one the bank wants.
The one from the packet is what we just read.
Yeah, so hold on a minute. We've got them. Teresa, can you go over and help them get the right one? Huh? that's the right one, could you bring that to the mayor, please? Because the bank made not the bank, the bond council made a revision. Teresa, yeah, just have her come up here. Let me see these again. That one bit, the backup I gave you.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
What do you got next?
You could take your seats, please. Okay, as in all things human, sometimes there's a hiccup. And I'm going to have to read this whole new document again, and then there's going to have to... Robert has it on his thing. He can read it when he comes back before we vote. The resolution of the City of Southport, North Carolina, declaring its official intent to reimburse expenditures under the United States Department of Treasury regulations. Be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen, the Board, for the City of Southport, North Carolina, the city, as follows. Section 1. The Board hereby finds, determines, and declares the following. Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury regulations, prescribes specific procedures which will be applicable to certain bonds or notes issued by or on behalf of the city, including, without limitation, a requirement that the city declare its official intent to reimburse certain expenditures with proceeds of debt to be incurred by the city prior to or within 60 days of payment of the expenditures to be reimbursed. B, the city intends to advance its own funds in order to pay certain capital costs of the original expenditures relating to the acquisition of a heavy rescue vehicle and an ambulance for the use of the city. The city reasonably expects to reimburse itself for the original expenditures from the proceeds of the debt to be incurred by the city. D, $1,555,000 is the maximum principal amount of debt currently expected to be incurred for the purpose of paying the cost of the project. This declaration of official intent is made pursuant to Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury regulations to expressly declare the official intent of the city to reimburse itself for the proceeds of the debt to be hereafter incurred by the city for the original expenditures paid by the city with respect to the project on or after the date, which is 60 days prior to the date hereof. I hope you followed that. The funds herefore advanced or to be advanced by the city to pay the original expenditures are and or will be available only on a temporary basis and do not consist of the funds where otherwise earmarked or intended to be used by the city to permanently finance the original expenditure. All original expenditures to be reimbursed by the city were paid no more than 60 days prior to or will be paid on or after the date of this declaration of an official intent, except with respect to certain amounts incurred before such 60-day period not exceeding 20% of the issue price of the proceeds of the debt to be hereafter incurred, which are expended for preliminary expenditures within the meaning of Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury regulations. The city understands that, except for the preliminary expenditures, such reimbursement must occur no later than 18 months after the later of the date of the original expenditures was paid and the date of the project is placed in service or abandoned, but in no event more than 3 years after the original expenditures were paid. This resolution shall take effect upon its adoption, adopted this 9th day of May 2024. Can I have a motion to accept that? So moved. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That was a lot.
It was written by a lawyer.
Okay, as we amended the agenda, the next item up is the public hearing annexation of Turtle Bay property. Mo, you're up. And I need a motion to open the public hearing on this.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, it's unanimous.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Thank you. This first public hearing is a statutory requirement that is outlined in the process for annexations, that prior to a decision of an annexation, a duly advertised public hearing must be held. The property is here on the board. It is a 54-acre parcel located on Highway 87 to the north of Rob Gandy Boulevard, south of the Duke Energy, and east of Highway 211. There's a portion in Brunswick County, and the majority of the parcel is within the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The whole parcel, if annexed, would be included within the city limits. It is contiguous to property to the west. You will see here the Sandy Lane area. This is the contiguous part that's for the city limits. So that is the brief overview for the annexation. So this is just for the annexation portion of the project.
Is there anyone here who wants to speak on that? Madam Clerk, would you be so kind as to make sure that in your notes you pull out the people who spoke at public record and slide them in here, because that was an error on our part. Okay. Is there anybody, I want to, last call, anybody wants to speak on the annexation part of this? Okay. I don't have to go to a second public hearing. So the second public hearing is for the zoning map amendment for the parcel of land on Highways 87 from R20 HC to Plan Unit Development of PUD, including the required master development plan. And Mo, you're up for this as well, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Before we start, the applicant did bring some larger printed copies of the master development plan, so I'll pass those down for you. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am, yes. And I have a better visual of this as well. So this next presentation is a request for a zoning change from R20 and highway commercial to planned unit development with a master plan. The process for this type of rezoning master plan is that the planning board hears it, makes a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. Then the Board of Aldermen hear a public hearing, will make a decision. If it is a favorable outcome, then the applicant would have to go through a major subdivision preliminary plat process. So it will have to go back to the subdivision process after the PUD process, if favorable. So as we spoke earlier about the annexation property, this is the same one. It is a 54-acre parcel located on Highway 87, just north of Rob Gandy Boulevard. The existing zoning is highway commercial and R20, which is the residential zoning. The future land use map is heavy commercial within the highway commercial area, and then also low density residential. So the change from highway commercial to PUD is inconsistent with the land use plan, but per 160D, the city is allowed, excuse me, a future land use map amendment concurrent with this zoning change. There doesn't need to be a separate application. So this wouldn't change the entire parcel to low density residential in the future land use map, which allows a variety of single family uses with a density of 2 to 3 units per acre. So this is the proposed master development plan. Planned unit development must be at least 6 dwelling units per acre, maximum of 6 dwelling units per acre, and 20% open space. This plan proposes 100 single-family lots with an overall density of 1.85 units per acre and offers 10.88 acres of open space that excludes the wetlands, which meets that 20% and is under the 6 dwelling units per acre. There is a street yard buffer on Highway 87 and a 25-foot periphery setback that will not be able to be encroached upon around the perimeter of the entire development itself. This development will have a gated entrance with private streets and right-of-ways and a secondary entrance for emergency access. And that would just be only allowed for the security access for entrance only. That would be the only. And the streets and right-of-way widths are reduced, and they were approved by the fire chief after the technical review committee review. The planned unit development allows 60% of the lot size, so the minimum lot size will be 12,000 square feet with an average, this one was 12,060 square feet. The front yard setback is going to be 10 feet, the rear is 15 feet, and the sides are 8. And those are the requirements that are allowed within the PUD and the UDO. And this says that the developer will be utilizing a single contractor that will hand cut each lot rather than the standard practice of clear cutting to meet our UDO requirements. There are 3 main open space sections in the development proposal. The first 2, open space 1 and 2, are approximately 65% of all the open space. And it includes the required mail kiosk and a lot of the passive and active recreational net. Again, there's 10.8 acres of open space. And in lieu of sidewalks on both sides of the street, the applicant has proposed an 8-foot multi-use path that is connected with 10-foot crosswalks around the streets that connects the open space areas and the neighborhoods throughout the development. And that is that's one of the in lieu that is allowed in the UDO. So instead of having both sides, you can do this larger multi-use path. This is the open space, the third section that includes more of the contiguous land and trails going through the existing vegetated areas, just to show you the next spot. There was a traffic impact analysis that was provided, and it was approved using the approved scoping by the City of Southport and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. And any analysis is required for development that is going to be having over 500, generates 500 trips or more per day. This development will generate approximately 1,000 trips per day. Due to that, and this says that the 74 trips will be in the AM peak hour and then 99 in the PM peak hours. North Carolina DOT recommended 3 improvements to their entrance that they have included on this development plan. That would be the construction of a southbound turning lane with 100 feet of storage, the construction of a northbound turning lane with 100 feet of storage, and then making sure that the driveway is constructed according to the NCDOT standards with the correct site triangle distances. So that has been provided in the development plan as it has been presented. This is not required, but a landscape plan was provided for just a reference of what would be an option for the tree mitigation. So the tree removal and mitigation plan would be part of the preliminary plat stage, and that would be taken care of again later. But they did include plantings from the native species list, and there were a couple requests from the planning board that they remove a couple of the species that may be more invasive and not native, and they replaced those with native species since that time. So these are some of the proposed homes that may be coming. Just wanted to provide that for you. I know people are interested in what may be coming. So in summary, again, this is a 100-lot single-family gated community. They are using a multi-path that will connect their open spaces and neighborhoods. It has 10.88 acres of open space, There are entrance upgrades per the NCDOT recommendations through the traffic analysis, and the master plan meets the plan unit development standards and the elements required for subdivisions in the UDO.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this project? Mo, I'm going to follow up with a question that was asked earlier when we got out of sync, and that is the entrance exit. It's onto 87, is it not?
That's correct, yes.
And at that point, when you're coming out of there, will you only be able to make a right-hand turn? Because by that time, this is built, that'll be a 4-lane road, will it not?
I'm sorry, may I ask Jackson, is there going to be a right hand only?
It's right and left turn out.
It will be a right and left out.
And am I correct that that's going to be 4 lanes, correct? It won't go that far up? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So you understand the process. What happens, we have the public hearing. This will be set at a minimum the next meeting to have a vote on it, which we'll have discussion points at that point on it. This board took a vote a long time ago not to vote the night of the public hearing so that we can digest the comments that were given to the public and see if we want to have any additional questions of the builders at that time. Does anybody on the board have anything they want to say now? Okay, thank you very much. And now I'd like to make a motion to come out of public hearing. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we are at which now is number 4, which is the right-of-way discussion. And
There's a public hearing.
on this?
Another one.
What's the other public hearing?
Oh, did you do both?
I did both, yes, yeah.
That's probably when I left the mouth.
Yeah. So this is the right-of-way one. So Dorothy, you have that? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not doing a PowerPoint this evening because we've already seen it about 10 million times, so we're just going to talk through it. Just as a reminder, right-of-way, the definition is the property located within and adjoining the streets, roads, and highways within the city, which rights-of-way are owned by the city or state or otherwise maintained by the city or state. Right-of-way may be an improved or unimproved state. Our current ordinance language states that any encroachment into the city's right-of-way is a violation. Rights-of-way include sidewalks, public streets, and alleys. And this includes everything above the horizontal plane of the existing grounds, such as landscaping, fencing, decorative pavers, and yard art. Section 16.8 of the UDO specifically states that rights-of-ways are to be unobstructed for the passage of people and vehicles. So we have some options for you to think about. The first one, we can enforce the ordinance as it is written. All obstructions must be removed within 72 hours or as agreed upon by the board. And with that, we could allow existing encroachments to stay or set a deadline for all encroachments to be removed. Another option is to allow only vegetative encroachments in the right-of-way. No hardscapes allowed. The city can access the right-of-way as needed for repairs, and the vegetation, and to consider with that, the vegetation cannot be replaced or the vegetation can be replaced with no cost to the city. Allow all encroachments regardless of the materials unless they pose a concern for public safety and accessibility. The city can access the right-of-way as needed. And then, of course, do you want to put the vegetation, allow them to put the vegetation back, or they cannot replace it. And then parking in the public right-of-way is allowed and cannot be reserved or held by adjacent property owners. If property owners want to improve an area for parking, they must maintain it, but it cannot be reserved or held as private parking. So just some background, we've been discussing right-of-way encroachments since fall of 2022. On March 28th, a group of city staff, including the city manager, myself, Mo Meehan, Derek Mabe with ACE Alliance Code Enforcement, and HP, our code enforcement officer. We really are asking the board to make some decisions about this so that we can move forward. Everything has been on hold for months and we haven't been able to do anything, and we've been telling property owners to kind of hold off on everything as well. And I think included in your packet, I gave you some examples of other areas. A lot of municipalities don't allow hardscapes or blocking the site triangles, but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of suggestions. For our staff recommendation, we encourage the board to allow vegetative encroachments. If hardscapes exist, the property owners have a certain amount of time to remove them. Property owners can replace the landscaping if removed for access, but these limitations should not include access to your property. So driveways and parking wouldn't necessarily be considered. And then we recommend pervious parking paths be allowed in the right-of-ways, particularly for the smaller lots.
Is there any questions at this time? No, sir. This is only for the Board of Aldermen, sir. Thank you.
I'm prepared to talk about what they gave us back in February, if we want to have those discussions. And these are just my notes. I handed out to board members. Does anybody want to talk first, or am I going to roll through this real quick? Oh, Lo.
Okay, I have shared with the board some things that I've tried to organize to.
I think we'll go right down the line.
Yeah.
We'll start with Karen, and we'll go
Okay.
down. Everybody has
All
their
right, why don't
comments.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I've kind of got, okay, so going through, I support the ordinances that are keeping our right-of-ways open and allowing the horizontal plane improvements as standard, including the planting of turf grasses on grade and parking pads in non-conforming R10 areas. In section 16A, 8A, I would like to consider adding just a statement that says the installation, because there has been some confusion in the past with staff, wondering if sod or if that was considered the plane. So I'd like to add a statement in that to clarify that, to say the installation of turf grasses on grade is allowed within the right-of-way. So that's a clear statement of what that is in A. Then in B, that language in residentially zoned areas without off-street parking requirements, property owners are permitted to improve 2 spaces, which we've all had that conversation. I separated out surfacing materials, and surfacing materials for these parking spaces shall be limited to one of the following: turf grasses, brick, pavers, number 57 stone with wood borders, no more than 2 inches above grade, or concrete. Allowable non-pervious surfacing materials, brick, pavers, or concrete, may only be used in an area that is a minimum of 50 feet from a city tree, so that it doesn't impinge on the roots and the feeding and the water, of the tree. And then just adding, require the review and written approval of the development services. So, and then the last would be parking surfaces existing prior to the adoption date of this ordinance shall be permitted to remain so long as the encroachments do not create a hazardous condition or safety hazard to the public. So that would grandfather in the existing parking paths. The next section, C, is as written in the ordinance. D, vegetation, that is their new language. Again, the only thing I would do is add the word written approval for the Development Services Director. And then on the last page, everything else, 16.9, 16.10, A stays the same all the way down, and just added, moved a sentence that they had already crafted. Following removal, any future encroachment must be done in accordance with the provisions of all applicable ordinances. B, which is mostly their language, added vegetation right-of-way encroachments existing prior to the adoption date of this ordinance shall be permitted to remain so long as the encroachments do not create a hazard to the public. Such encroachments shall not be permitted to be expanded, and the city reserves the right to remove a right-of-way encroachment for any public purpose and shall not be liable for the removal of those encroachments. Existing vegetation right-of-way encroachments removed at any time by the city for a public purpose are allowed to be reconstructed, if possible, at the property owner's expense. Then lastly is their language from February, and I had just moved that from somewhere else and created a separate item. The city reserves the right to remove a right-of-way encroachment for any public purpose and shall not be liable for the removal of those encroachments and shall levy the cost of removal in accordance with section 1610A above, which is what that staff had written.
Well, I have a question for her. Irrigation could be installed, right?
I think that's a question for us to say.
Okay, so I'm in agreement with what Karen stated here and what staff originally presented us, plus the fact that irrigation be allowed. Irrigation.
So, is there any questions of Karen right now? I have a question. You used the word that the owner could have 2 reserved parking spaces. Two identified parking spaces, I think is what you meant, right?
No, two spaces, pad. It's like a pad thing.
But not reserved for them exclusively?
No, you can't. It's in the language.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it was clear, because I heard the word reserved, and I just didn't want to make sure that...
That wasn't the word that... Wait a minute, I can get to you.
That's all right.
Because it specifically addresses it, Rich, when I find which one to drop.
No, I saw the original one, but because you said it, I didn't want anybody to walk away thinking that they could have reserved ones.
It says parking spaces constructed by a property owner within the right-of-way shall remain open to the public for public parking and shall not be reserved for the property whose owner constructed the spaces.
Okay.
So we can't do.
Robert, do you have a comment?
I think that the staff did a really good job, and Karen's comments here, at addressing the public's concerns. So I'm good with this.
Alderman Davis.
I've put together more or less a streamlined version of this, but I think that this does not get us to the point where we look at some exceptions that we should include. And I mean, we're kind of rewriting ordinance here on the fly, and I have a suggestion about dealing with that. But in particular,
I'm not sure 2022 to now is a fly, but okay.
Okay. But we just keep batting it around. One thing comes up and then we don't, and we move on to something else. We have not specifically gone through each and every idea and the public's objections to things. But for example, with the hardscape, there's existing hardscape in the city. I'm talking about some walls and so on that were installed for drainage purposes. So that should be allowed with the approval of the city engineer, and I think we need to bake that into the ordinance. And then we have hardscape that is definitely encroaching, but is historic. I mean, going way back 50, even 100 years, and some of it's here on Bay Street. So we need to include some exceptions that would be fair to all the property owners. And with the vegetation, I think we have to be clear about trees. Many, in fact most, I'd say, of the trees in the right-of-way were planted by the city, and we don't have any intention of ever removing those unless they need to be removed. But what about trees planted by the adjacent property owners, the property owners who are adjacent to the right-of-way? I suggest that we allow private property owners who have the property that's in front of the right-of-way, that we have an exception that would allow them to plant trees with the approval of the forestry committee forestry committee knows how far apart trees need to be. They know what the specimen trees are and so on. And I think that we've been talking about the grass and the horizontal plane for vegetation. Just in the last few weeks, there have been plantings that have entirely taken up the right-of-way. And I think we need to address that. And I have a suggestion, which would be, I know it sounds like we're kicking the can down the road, but I would say that we bring this back by the July meeting. And in the interim, you appoint an ad hoc committee to put all this together and come up with a final plan for all of us to look at that includes all of the things that are going to be said today. I don't think we're ready to come up with something to impose on the city yet. We haven't ironed out all the details.
Alderman Kelly.
The addition of the following removal, any future encroachment must be done in accordance with all the provisions of all applicable ordinances. Karen, was the intention was probably not like current parking pads or
I don't know where you,
on the last page of
Okay.
your thing, the top paragraph, the red verbiage there.
Yeah.
So I don't think the intention, and I just want to make sure, is if the city needs to dig up the pavers or the gravel or whatever is there, that if it's well documented that it was there, like we hopefully will call and say, hey, homeowner XYZ, city's got to come out in case it's unless it's an emergency when we've got water shooting out of the ground or something. Make sure you take a picture and then you can put it back how it was, as long as they can prove that it was like that prior to, right? Like that's, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing that.
Alderman Spencer?
Not right this second.
Alderman Lay? So I just want to have clarification on this for the strategic. If you already did it, you're okay? If you already got paid, if you've put stuff in the right of way, if it's only at the height of the grass, that stuff is okay.
Correct.
Anything above that is not okay.
Hardscape. Hardscape.
When you say hardscape, you're
You mean fences, brick.
okay.
Right.
Definition already in the ordinance says walls, fences, gates, brick, stone, wood, rock, or other structures, material or substance above the horizontal plane of the existing ground.
Okay.
In other words, I mean, to more specifically define that, it is anything that impedes parking in the right-of-way.
Okay,
free
so
movement.
I have a clear understanding of that. I want to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of what's being said. The other thing that I didn't, maybe I missed it. The right-of-ways here can be, depending on the street, rather large. Goes right up to some people's front door. Are we talking about, or should we talk about, some distance? In other words, what's the goal here? Is the goal to make sure that we have parking available to us? And that would mean, as an example, from the side of the edge of the asphalt, 12 feet in. That's where we want you to do it. Or are we telling people that if you have a 99-foot thing, virtually it takes up almost all of their front yard, they can't put anything above the height of the grass in that whole space? Are we interested in that entire right-of-way at this discussion, or are we really talking about the right-of-way so that people can park there?
I think the conversation has to be the whole right-of-way because of consistency and how our right-of-ways are so different in so many areas. So because you live on Bay Street means you have you get away with more, or because you have
there is no right-of-way.
Right. Well, no, there is no yard. It's nothing but right-of-way. So, I think consistency is what we have
I'm
to.
not thinking Brunswick, yes. you're right.
Yeah, but yeah, so on Bay Street, I mean, that's just one example, but it's consistency, and I think this takes into consideration, you know, everything that Ms. Cabral said with being able to put back the stuff that they've invested in. They don't have any hardscape in either of those lawns along West-West that would have to come out. I don't know that they have anything in those 2 yards that have to come out.
There's no plants, there's no nothing?
Well, and
The
I wanna talk
plants
about the
are
plants.
allowed
Oh,
in
okay.
this ordinance.
Okay. So the only things that we would prohibit is the fences, rocks, boulders, things like that.
So just to be clear, plants and trees potentially would then also be allowed in the right-of-way?
Vegetation,
So, and that's,
that's, vegetation
okay,
would
I
be
just want,
trees.
I just want to make sure we're
and-
covering all the bases here.
Existing vegetation
And-
would be grandfathered in.
But no new vegetation
No new
could go in.
vegetation, because then it brings us back into compliance.
So then let's talk about, okay, we just had to pull out the bush that was in the right-of-way. Is that owner then allowed to put that bush back?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. It is allowed to be re.
But if I buy a house and there's very little vegetation on it, and I want to make the street as pretty, my house as pretty as the next street, the next house, I would not be able to do that because it's not existing.
I mean, that's just part of it, and Mr. Thompson spoke to that earlier this evening, you know. People that got in earlier built to 45 height restriction, or 40-foot height restriction, and today you can't do that.
So, but they can put turf in and grasses now,
Right.
so it
Well,
won't have to sit empty.
We're
It can-
clarifying it here, that yes, they can do turf grasses. And the other thing too is, and y'all probably know this about forestry, is that every year when forestry does thing, if there's a hole somewhere, they try to plug it with a live oak tree. So they work, you know, every year we do plantings around that. So, but yes, it would mean that going forward, we honor this ordinance.
And then, like the fences, the boulders, anything like that's already in place that is not a hazard, that's not a detriment, does that have to be then pulled out at this point?
Yes, yes. This would remove hardscape, because hardscape, it's more, this idea, this whole narrative about parking, yes, we all park in the right-of-way, but that's really, there's more to keeping these right-of-ways clear, because we use from edge to edge, like the street in my house the street in front of my house is 18 feet wide. If somebody wants to pull off, we've got to have clear right-of-way to pull off. If there's a fire truck that is there, they've got to have ways to move around. These right-of-ways, I appreciate that they seem overly wide, but it's part of how we function and safety. And with all the activity in our in-town streets, that makes them and a visual obstruction. When we talk about adding more and more plantings, we have to be concerned about visual obstruction. And then, so anyway, that's what I'm saying. It's not just about parking.
If someone has the right-of-way fenced in, we have every right to cross that fence into that space, but we can't.
And
Well,
again, we have so
I
many
guess you could hop the
exceptions that we
fence,
need to
but-
consider.
This is the thing, y'all, about ordinance, in my experience. You cannot account for every exception. You deal with them when they come up. You have to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because we will never, here we are. I just want to say this. Since 22, I counted this many presentations. These are all the different presentations that staff has given us, so we've got to make a decision.
Absolutely, I just look
Yeah,
for
but no,
clarification.
I'm here
So,
for, yeah.
let's say someone has a fence, they've got bushes next to the fence, the fence has to come out, but their bushes can stay.
Correct, because hardscape has to go.
Okay.
And if I can quickly say, you know, as Alderman Mosteller said, you know, ordinances, you put them in, let's try it, let's start somewhere. And if there's problems or issues, certainly the public's going to tell you, but staff will tell you too, and come back to you and you can make changes. But we really, I think, for the sake of the public, need to make some decisions here.
What are we going to do about, I mean, I will cite one particular case that we all know of, and that is someone who lives at the bottom of a slope, and the contour of that slope is such that when in any, but not even a really heavy rain, but all the water that comes down the curb comes down, and when it reaches his driveway, it curves into his yard and under his house. And he's had to have the area under his house pumped out numerous times. And the city has said, this is your problem to deal with. He dealt with it years ago, I'd say at least 5 or 6 years ago, by installing a little wall, a little wall that is about a foot high on both sides of the driveway. It crosses the sidewalk, and it crosses up to the curb. So the water that comes pouring down continues to pour down instead of it's contoured, so that it doesn't go into his driveway and down into his yard. How do we deal with this? Are we going to make him take that out and then say, so sorry, the next time he's got flooding?
I think that the city,
we need to deal with the exceptions.
yeah, I think the city has to handle that. I don't think that we can cause a hardship. I mean, maybe we can, that's a legal question for Brady, but that sounds like a hardship that could be overcome through a conversation with the city.
And drainage.
That should be on us.
We should have been,
He shouldn't have fixed it in the first place. He should have come to us and had us pay for that remedy.
He didn't come to the, I don't know if he went to the Board of Aldermen, but he did go to the Public Works Department, and they said no. What are we going to do about 100-year-old walls?
Are they inside the sidewalk? So maybe that's a differentiation. So something inside the sidewalk versus closer to the street than the sidewalk?
Essentially, everything inside the sidewalk, in most cases, is out of the right-of-way.
Unfortunately,
So
no,
this is
that's
where we
one
go
of the
down our rabbit hole.
problems. That's why
give
Rich
me an
was talking about 12 feet.
Help me to understand this example then. Like, show me an example, explain to me an example so that we can work through this.
Okay, I'll cite one. I hope she doesn't mind. Ginger Harper's house. All across the front of her property is a very, very old brick wall. And it is just on the inside of the sidewalk, but the right-of-way goes up pretty close to her front steps. So, you want to take down a 100-year-old wall? And there are others.
There are always going to be exceptions. You handle those separately.
The public's point of view, if they see us allowing one while we're telling somebody else, hey buddy, you got to tear down that wall you just built. Okay, we need to put this within the ordinance to deal with it.
Ms. Bonnie, do you, I mean, it's your job and staff's job so how would you handle this, and what is your recommendation about how we handle those
Well, I
items?
think if it's something like that, we could come to the board and say, hey, we have this situation, it's, historic or whatever, and, we would like to recommend that the board, allow for something like that to happen. And then in that way, we could say to the new wall people, no, this was a special circumstance, and we brought it to the elected body as an exception. And certainly if we find that we have a lot of exceptions, then we'll bring it back to you to say, maybe we need to adjust the ordinance. But I think we gotta just try this.
And so that would be something that we'd vote on, it'd be documented, and it'd stay with that property until the end of time.
In perpetuity.
So you're going to bring us an ordinance with various suggestions in it and so forth?
That's up to the board.
this is most of the.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I don't agree with all of it.
What?
If we're going to vote on that now.
I've got to also just wanted to say too that, well, I won't get into that. Let's stay on.
Other comments?
I have one more, and that is this. We maybe are not fully embracing the fact that the right-of-way is public property. It belongs to all of the people. And going out into it and putting stuff in it and planting in it and making it as if it's your own, I presume that people would not do that. You wouldn't go do that in your next door neighbor's property that is adjacent to you. Why do that to the public's property? And it is in effect a seizure of public property. And so that's why my proposals were pretty strict.
In most instances, people have gone in and what they've done is improve the property.
They've improved their property, and yet this is the public's property, and so this does not necessarily improve what the public needs the property for or would like to have the property for.
Generally, if they're improving the property, they're improving the area around them in the city as well.
But how would you feel if your next door neighbor started planting things in your yard and said, I'm improving your yard, I'm making your yard prettier?
If my yard looked terrible and I wasn't taking care of it, I'd be really excited that they took on that property.
But if your yard looked like Mrs. Cabral's and I went over and started planting plants, how would that be?
Exactly.
So if because again, it's the public's property.
And the city has not maintained it in the majority of the city.
I don't mean to pick on you, and I'm not.
Is there any other substantial comment?
This is why it's been a topic of constant discussion by this board since 2022. There are too many things to consider, but we keep circling around the key issue, which is the right-of-way is the public's property.
I think we have good in front of us. I think we have to move forward with something that gives our city staff the ability to move forward with enforcement or not. We know that there's a potential remedy for those that are not satisfied with how this works to come back to us and ask for an exception. And certainly I don't think that our intention is to create a hardship for anyone who has something already in place at this point in time.
That says it all.
Okay, since this is a comment moment, and I have the luxury of not saying a thing because I probably will not vote, but then I'm not going to do what others have done and then take credit for the things that either work out or don't work out. My comment here is I believe this conversation started with parking. And it started with parking. And we should worry about the 12-foot limit. And I really don't care what you're doing 40 feet up into the yard, even though it may belong to the city. If you want to put flowers in there and make that street, like many of these streets in the Old Town section, beautiful, and have flowers and things in your yard that make it nicer, then I think you should be able to do that.
Just to answer that, the problem is because our roads are not centered within the right-of-way, they're all over the map, so there would not be a way to just give some carte blanche space that says this is standard along because the roads. So anyway, I'm just saying that's problematic for that reason.
Well, as I said,
Also, that's why we have surveys. Property owners have surveys that show where their property line is.
Well, I think we have good in front of us. I'd like to make a motion to approve approve in the manner that with Alderman Mosteller's recommendations and notes in this. So I guess we'll pass this to city staff to make sure that gets in that way.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any comments? All in favor, say aye, and please raise your hand. All opposed? It's 4-2. We move forward.
Additionally, I would ask that staff refer back to the May 5th, 2023 presentation that gives all the information about 6 months, a 6-month grace period to bring this into fruition, and all the different community relations involvement, so if they would address that.
I'm going to ask a legal question here. Since we already voted, and she's adding to the vote, do we have to?
Oh, no, this is just to ask them to do what they've already said.
Oh, it's on the piece of paper? Okay.
Yeah, it's a
All right.
former presentation of what they said that they could do.
Yeah, you're just talking about when you're going to go and enforce it in terms of coming into compliance.
Well, it says staff recommends the establishment of a grace period not to exceed 6 months, so I guess we would have to vote on that, or no?
Well, I mean, that's up to you all how
No,
how
I think
long, but I
just
I
taking
think you guys
staff's
need to give
recommendations.
staff- Yeah, just give staff direction on their enforcement.
Right.
I would think that you're going to want us to rewrite this, I hate to even say this, and then bring it back for the formal vote.
Okay.
I think that would be the cleanest way to do it.
Yeah.
I know, I just hate to bring it back, but.
But this is the starting point, I mean, right? Is that?
Is the board good with that suggestion from the manager, that we write it all up, put it in a single document, all the parts that have been in all those different pieces, and bring it back the first Monday meeting, 5 minutes done? Okay?
That's what I was asking for.
Okay.
Are you going to take a vote on that?
No, I think the manager said it would take her that long to get everything together. Do you want to make a motion and we vote on it?
I think the public is under the impression we just voted for all of the suggestions that we have adopted an ordinance.
Correct. And they're just going to clean it up.
They're going to clear it up for us and bring it back to us.
I think she's saying that those who left think that it's been voted on. So Cheyenne and I will work on coming up with something.
The motion was to adopt this
That's
as,
right. I mean, we have
as
adopted an ordinance.
So yes, I think that,
To worry about cleaning this up and bringing it back.
I don't think we need to bring it back, just clean it up and.
I mean, maybe just
Yeah,
not
but
red and
cleaning it
green,
up
right?
changes it perhaps. Why don't we?
I really do think,
I think the cleaning it up is just making the font all black and like,
If I could just add one statement too, it's in both our code of ordinances and our UDO. So
Right.
UDO changes have to go to the planning board for approval anyway.
Right.
So that part's gonna be taken care of, and we'll clean this up and then move forward, as long as we have direction.
So in effect, we need to clarify that we voted to send it to the planning board?
No, this is code of ordinances, not UDO.
The way I'm understanding this is you've given us direction to use Alderman Mosteller's guide. We will rewrite that. It'll be codified in the code of ordinances, and the text amendment for the UDO will be taken to the planning board as suggested.
okay. The next agenda item is a call for public hearing setback encroachments. And Mo, I believe, are you up with that one? I'm sorry, it says call for public hearing setback?
Yes, this is a request for a call to a public hearing. This was an encroachment text amendment that has started last September, that came to the planning board, came to the Board of Aldermen, sent back to the planning board, and it has made a complete change, and the text is completely different. So we would like to call another public hearing before we bring the language back for a vote. So,
Is there any questions for Mo?
No.
I would entertain a motion to call for a public hearing on June 11th, 2024 for the amendment to section 3.9.b of the Unified Development Ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye and raise your hand, please. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. And I believe we are getting close to the end here. Next steps for the old City Hall.
And April 30th, High Caps, which was the building consultant who did our building assessment, came to you and gave you the findings of their environmental review of the old courthouse. They did say and gave us a price of $8,500 to begin the bidding process, which they will oversee. The deliverables would be a full set of bid documents, specs, abatement permit applications, updated budget based on construction drawings and the RFQ for the contractors. It'll take about a month to complete, so if you want to go on to this next step, then the cost would be $8,500, and I would recommend you take that from the administration contingency fund. That was for the job study money that you don't need right for this fiscal year, but it's in next year's.
Is there any questions of the manager on this topic? I have one question. Can you refresh my memory? We did allot the money for the building structural review already?
No, you have not. But at this point, they don't want to do the structural review until they get into the building doing the environmental. So if we come back with the bid document, we'll include the price for the structural. And that's when that would be done.
So this would be the beginning of a multi-step process. We're approving the money that's needed for this company to write up the specifications for bidding. And the bidding is for the environmental assessment, right?
Right, in order to get that done. The hope is that we'll have a clearer picture of the exact price, because I remember the gentleman from High Cap said that this is a great time because abatement companies are very, very eager, so the pricing may come in even better. So this will allow us hopefully to get some better pricing for the budget.
I'm sorry, maybe I just misheard you. We're going to start on the cleaning up of the building before we know if it's structurally sound to actually do anything?
No, no, no. What they're saying is if they're going to work, they want to do the structural at that point.
And then do the
Right.
renovation. Okay.
Not ahead of time.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear on that. So, is there any more?
I have some consternation about this particular thing. I appreciate that we all want to move forward. We want to see forward more motion with the restoration of our historic old courthouse. But when I served on the planning board, we met upstairs, so I actually have knowledge of it, like some of the other people on the board. But I'm not in favor of spending any more money on inspections or design work to mitigate environmental issues and the required HVAC installation. Part of this is also having to get HVAC installation conversation without a plan. And I don't understand that. Until we know what the uses are before we design the HVAC, I don't see how we can do mitigation without an HVAC solution. So we have a newly formed, community-based 501c3 nonprofit that's mission is to work with the city to restore and maintain our historic courthouse. They introduced themselves several months ago and recently reminded us that they are ready and waiting to sit down and share what they've been working on. This nonprofit organization wants to create I believe, wants to create a public-private partnership with the city if we can work it out. And regarding the future of this building, and at our last month's meeting, we committed to scheduling a meeting with them. And before we commit any more funds without a plan, let's meet. We can always allocate $8,500. That's not the point. The point is, if we can figure this out with them, it could be a win-win, a civics and arts center, and the city would have a partner to share the costs of the project and future maintenance. So I think it behooves us, as we're all acutely aware of budget and our six-year capital improvement plan and the costs of everything, that we need to be creative and in achieving some of these goals. And I would ask that before we commit any more funds, we schedule a meeting with the board for the Civic Arts Center nonprofit. These are smart people. Their board is made up of talented individuals willing to share their expertise and time, and I, for one, would like to hear what they say so that we come up with either yay or nay or how we move forward. But anyway, that's all I got.
You know, we've already seen architectural plans and conceptual plans and so on for the Arts Center as proposed. I think that we do need to decide whether we're going to find a way to turn it over to the nonprofit and not have it be used by the city for city government purposes, or whether we are going to establish that we're going to use it for city purposes, and we're going to take on the preservation of this historic building. It's on the National Register of Historic Landmarks, and whether we're going to keep it for government use or not. And Alderman Mostel is right. We need to make that decision. But of course, mold is growing more and more every day over there, which is why this is on the agenda, I'm certain. Do we want to take a...
No, let's let everybody talk.
Well, okay, I was not quite finished. But.
Yeah, I am not willing to not have that be, it must be in some form a city property. We have got to get out of this building. This is insane. We're competing with weddings and all kinds of stuff. We need to be back in the chambers for our meetings. So whatever we do has to have that goal in mind. I don't see, I mean, certainly that organization, well, I don't know what that organization wants or doesn't want because I haven't really talked to them, but the prior organization, Up Your Arts, their goal was for it to be a multi-purpose use with the city having our chambers upstairs. So if that's not an option, then we have to take back and move forward with how we're going to move forward.
Well, clearly, Robert, I had multiple conversations with the past group, and I don't know what the new group was. That chamber up there was not ours. That's to be shared with everybody in the world, and you would pick a ticket and a time, and you try to block it out if you could. They were going to have weddings in competition with this building. They were going to have plays up there. They were going to have music up there. They're going to have all kinds of events up there, and we would be no better off than when we have to go down to Indian Trail all the time. So that was not the case. My point here is, regardless of what we decide to do with the building, one way or the other, the remediation of this building will not stop either way of going. And the city has been dragging their feet for over 8 years on this. It's about time. We're at the cusp of finally stopping the mold and everything. And for $8,500, we can move forward. And at the end of the day, because they're going to have to rip out all the walls. I mean, you're going to have to, whatever you're going to put in there, you're going to rebuild it from the inside. We need to move forward and stop the decay, get the plywood off the front of the building. It looks like a dump, and that's an embarrassment.
I'm certainly in favor of spending money to try to keep the building from deteriorating further. And we can do that whether the city's going to be the primary stakeholder or we're going to be in a partnership with this other group. And
one of the things, just to your little bit of the frustration, is this board now is not the same people. This board is unique to and new, And so, yes, Lowe's right, we've seen designs, but that's not necessarily what the end result is going to be. That was a conceptual plan, and so I would not hold this board, this current
I'm not holding them to the old plan. I'm just saying that regardless of what we do, since we're going to have to strip the inside of the building, start over, we can postpone that decision and start on this right now to save the building from any more decay.
Okay, but in this justification says to replace the HVAC system. So I know we're going to have to, but when is that in conjunction? Once they do the abatement, then they're going to have it humidified. I mean, so we're going to have an HVAC system. That's what I'm saying.
But all they have to do, if you're worried about whether or not they're going to put which wall the stuff is coming through, they'll run a pipe. It's a big round pipe. It's got holes in it all the way down. That is what you do every time you have a hurricane. You run these big pipes. There must be about this big around. They have holes in them. The fire department, I'm sure, knows all about them. And they blow air into it. So you can just run it into the empty rooms.
So it's just temporary?
It's just temporary. And then when you build the building, you put the inside pipes in. Okay? I'm sorry, I had my back to all you guys, and I apologize. Is there any questions on this side? Okay.
So I guess the only question I have, Mr. Mayor, is are we going to set a date as Alderman Mosteller suggested,
I think I had met with Mr. Lombardi and Mark, and I have given them a sample lease that they can start, kind of coming together to try to put something. So as soon as they contact me and say that they're ready to even have something to talk about.
Well, what I would say is, I don't know, and this is an attorney thing, Brady, but I don't necessarily know if it's a lease per se, or is it a collaboration, or that I think we need to, before somebody crafts some kind of lease agreement, which we haven't even had a discussion about, I think it would behoove us to meet with them, because we're pretty set about the upstairs, I am anyway, and as Alderman Carroll said. So I think we need to, before we get into something as specific as a lease, I think that's so nebulous at this point, because we don't even know if we are on the same page.
Except that in order for them to go for grants, and this is what they want, they've got to have a written commitment from the city and they want to get that going yesterday. So I just came up with a lease because I had reached out nationwide about somebody give me a document that's very similar, and I got no responses. So I figure at least here's something. And of course, Mark's an attorney, but they really want a commitment so they can start the fundraising.
Well, before we do all of that, before we ask them to write a lease, spend all that time, we can make our decision. Are we going to keep the building? Are we going to split the building? Are we going to lease the building?
I'm ready to decide now.
Well, we don't even know what they're offering. This is going to be a $4+ million thing, and the long-term maintenance on something. I think it's very disingenuous to tell them we're going to meet with them, and then now we're going to make a decision without sitting down. And these are a lot of people in our community that have worked and have talents and things that we might be a good thing. I just think that I just don't understand. That seems very disingenuous to what we said we'd do.
I don't remember that we said we would do that. What I do know is that we've heard constantly that city staff needs space. And here's all this space, not just the upstairs, but all of that downstairs. That's an enormous interior. And once we get it all renovated and preserved, and because it is a historic landmark, there are many grants that we can apply for to help get us over the hump of how much that would cost. I think that our need for space for city purposes greatly outweighs the benefits of having an arts center. We have other arts places, and the arts center, at least as it was previously described, would have been one that would be in competition with art galleries and other places that sell art. And one of the things you all have heard me say many times is government should not compete with private business. So I would be prepared to make a motion and vote on whether we are interested in even going forward with considering anything other than government use of the old City Hall, city courthouse.
So, I'm not saying one way or another about that, but there really isn't, I mean, there really isn't a lot of grant money associated with historic properties, and we learned that through our time with SHPO. So I appreciate, it sounds good, but just to clarify for the community, there really isn't a lot of money for that purpose. So we'd have to go and find money some other way, and it wouldn't necessarily be through historic preservation grants.
And I'm pretty sure, I'm not, writing anything in blood on this, that Raleigh will be looking favorably on the restoration of that building to its original purpose of a government building.
It is the only antebellum structure that is in government use that is still standing in Brunswick County, and it should stay in government.
Any comment from the side of the table?
So
Okay.
the only thing that I would say is that if we did say that we were going to meet with them, we should meet with them.
When did we say that?
The mayor said that.
Yep, she's right. So I'm in favor of meeting with them, but I would really like us to pass this tonight so we can start moving with the building. One shouldn't be not tied to the other. So I would entertain a motion to approve the use of $8,500 for the administration of the administration contingency fund to allow High Caps to develop a request for qualifications so that we can begin receiving pricing for the environmental abatements. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye and raise your hand. Any opposed? It's unanimous, thank you. So I will leave it to the manager to work with our very many schedules, budget meetings, yada, yada, and all the other things that we're doing to try to find some time to meet with them as soon as we can. Okay? All right. Now, I am up to the committee reports. Karen, do you have a committee report?
We did beautification, work day, and forestry is busy. I don't really have anything for forestry. It's next week, the meeting, so we haven't had another meeting.
Okay. Robert?
Oh, wait, you know what? I do have something else about forestry, and this is really a question, Mayor, about, we've redone these committees, and forestry, one of the committee members, the vice chair, is running, or not, is asking to be reappointed, has made an application, and so then the way this thing reads, it says chair or vice chair being interviewed, and another, the mayor shall serve on the interview committee if it's a vice chair, chair. I don't know how much you want to be, like trying to schedule it's a lot to schedule you to fill in. So it's Monday. I don't know if you're available Monday.
I'm sorry, is the chair going to be vacant?
No, the vice chair has reapplied for appointment. The chair will be there, I will be there, and the chair will be there, but usually we have a third person. In the way that we've written these things, the mayor or mayor pro tem is supposed to, if it's chair or vice chair, then the mayor pro tem or mayor is supposed to be one of the three.
How about can we put this off because I just caught me by surprise.
Sorry.
can we put this off to the next meeting and then we can appoint a new person?
Well, this would be my question. We're supposed to do the interviews on Monday because everything's trying to get it because there's so much to be done and people's schedules. What I would ask is if we could consider, since this is a new ordinance and we haven't been down this road yet, I think Parks and Recs they don't even have a vice chair. I think they're appointed one of their committee members to be the third person. If we could do that from forestry just for this year, this way, then do the interviews.
I'm sorry?
I can likely be there Monday, depending on
Monday
the time.
morning,
if you
9:30 to 11?
I can do that.
Okay, cool. Well, then
We got
that's it. Thank you.
Done. I'm sorry, Robert, did you have anything?
I attended HPC for Robert, and they were continuing to work on their inventory to move that forward.
I had soccer, sorry.
Lo, do you have anything?
Excuse me, Parks and Recreation, similar situation to Forestry. There is no vice chairman, and so the committee decided that one of the members who is not up for, whose term is not up yet, will fill in. And I checked today, and there are 5 applicants for 3 open positions. And Tanya is getting the schedule set up. Schedule of dinner.
Alderman Kelly.
4th of July is happening. Planning Board had a couple of meetings today talking about sign ordinances and some things coming at us soon, so we will see that in front of us again probably in the next couple of meetings. So that's it.
Alderman Spencer.
I was trying to come up with something funny about the cemeteries, but I don't know. They're dying to get in there, yes, sir. I was not president of the last cemetery because of City Vision, so I do not have an update. I know you did meet with Mr. Ashley, and they've done a lot of work, and we sort of talked about maybe they could come in and present the different ideas that they've had and lay out some of those ideas for us.
Yes, I left it to them to decide whether it was going to be June or July, the whole board to come in and tell us what they've done, what they want to do, and one of the big issues that we're going to have to talk about is trees. The trees in the old cemetery are old, and you can't get a crane in because you'd run over the top of the tombstones. So how much that's going to cost, what that's going to do, but I left it with that committee to come up with a plan, tell us what their plan is, and we'll have to figure out how to budget for that.
And I'm going to listen.
Alderman Lay.
Yeah, I attended the ABC board meeting yesterday. Financials look good. Met the new assistant manager. Got the new bourbon lotteries getting ready to come up. I think he said had like 1,000 people signed up. That ain't gonna happen, but that's a novel way. I like it.
Just so you know, I do not participate in it, but Alderman Carroll and I were, I think, I'm going to take a little credit for this, instrumental for getting that lottery system running.
We got people that sign up from that. They're from Charlotte, Raleigh, everywhere. I mean, big.
What are you giving away?
Okay, so we have the committee reports. The next is the manager's report. Part of that you already heard is we have the tree issue coming up in the cemetery. Another issue is we're going to have. I've asked for a work session to fit it in somewhere when we are available to look at Tom Z's plan, draft plan for what you would do for each lot, big or small, on pervious, impervious, and changing the UDO to allow for the city to see a site plan for the stormwater plan before the whole thing is accepted. This is something we've all been waiting for years. He's put it together. I'd like to have a workshop for us to talk to him about it, see what that is. And then it goes to the planning board, and then it comes back to us and we do something with it. But I want to get it, I'd like to get it done sooner than later, and as my personal wish is that we don't wait for all of the UDO changes to come in, because when we dump them on the planning board, they're going to be a lot of stuff. And this is really important. And I know Alderman Davis has another topic that she wants to throw into that mix.
Yes, and it is based on recommendation from the former planner, Travis, about increasing our multiplier for the amount of open space that would go into a new subdivision. Right now, it's very inadequate, and he came up with a formula for that, and I'd like us to discuss that, and I will email everybody a copy of that. It's on a spreadsheet so that you see that if we change the multiplier one way, it would give you this much more open space according to how many acres or how many units there are. So I'd like us to discuss that in that same meeting. It's another change to task the planning board with.
Okay, now we're at board comments. I'm going to go this way. Alderman Lay? Alderman Spencer?
Sir, I have to announce, today is a birthday. Your birthday? No, sir. But it is one of the most eligible bachelors in Southport's birthday. He's one of the hardest planning board members we've got. He's barber to the stars. And he is my good friend from Cape Fear Drive. Happy birthday, Will Hewitt. And we'll be buying all the margaritas tonight at the Mexican restaurant, so y'all come on out.
Alderman Kelly?
I have a personal conflict next week on Wednesday for the budget workshop, and I wanted to see if by chance we could move to Tuesday instead, and no go on Tuesday, or perhaps moving the Friday workshop to Monday.
You mean Monday the 20th?
Yeah.
So Wednesday and Friday do not work?
No.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Monday the 20th does not work, so you want to move to?
No, I would like to move to either Tuesday, I think Karen said she can't do Tuesday.
Well,
Monday
I've
the
got
20th?
Either's fine with me.
I tell you what, I could do Tuesday afternoon. I'll just not do what that was. I could do Tuesday the 14th.
The Tuesday afternoon will work for me, Mark.
So we'll move Wednesday to Tuesday, and what about Friday?
I can't. I don't have.
Well, I'm trying to see if we can do both, but moving Wednesday to Tuesday.
Does that work for staff?
And we've got time to notice it.
Dory can notice it tomorrow.
Can Tuesday be in the morning, like at 11? Like 9?
I'm sorry, what?
Which
Tuesday
day?
morning at 9.
I've got interviews for beautification committee
So she wanted
already set
afternoon.
up. Interviews are like 9 to 11. I could do 11, start early at 11
Does that work?
on
Which day are we talking
Tuesday.
about?
Tuesday, the
I
14th.
got that one, okay.
No, that doesn't work for Mark.
At 11 does not work?
That's fine. 11's fine. I might leave early.
Okay, so Tuesday, the 14th, that's Wednesday. So now we got to switch the Friday out?
If we can. I would really appreciate it.
Tuesday the 14th is what we're
so the Wednesday is moving to Tuesday, so now you've got a whole day Wednesday to do with what you please.
City manager.
So we're meeting on Tuesday the 14th, what time?
Hold on a second.
11.
Hold on a second.
It'll be in this building on Tuesday.
Oh, we'll figure that, yeah,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you. That's the least of my problems.
11. 11 o'clock.
Please send that request, Sarah. Make sure, send that request, you know what?
He wants to have it sent out as an appointment reminder to everybody.
And
I
then,
think that's what he meant.
yeah, and then Friday, move to Monday? Okay, are you gone that whole week?
I'm gone to Portugal.
Okay. Then I guess leave Friday as it is, and
You couldn't do, I could do Thursday.
unfortunately, I won't be available
Okay.
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Gotcha.
Tuesday at 11.
So we got Tuesday, the 14th at 11,
Thank
and
you,
then we're
guys.
keeping Friday?
Yes.
The only other suggestion I have is we cancel Friday and that's not gonna work, I was gonna say, because we need more time to help you with the gap, so, no. Same thing, we're gonna keep Friday the way it is, which is 9 o'clock at Indian Trails.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
I'm going to come back to you.
We need somebody to put out another sheet with the 75 meetings on it.
Sarah will make
Sarah,
sure you get
please.
updates of everything.
Alderman Davis, any comment?
Two things. We just mentioned Sarah. Welcome to your first Board of Aldermen meeting. This is our new city clerk. Welcome. And the other thing I'd like to comment on is Memorial Day is coming up. It's to be celebrated on May the 27th, Monday the 27th, and two things will begin. One is we have a Memorial Day event. We have a parade that starts, it forms up at the Longshoremen's Union parking lot on North Lord. Starts forming up a little after 10 o'clock. I'm sure that the firemen will be engaged and the old fire truck will roll and so on. It is a parade and it proceeds and ends up at John N. Smith Cemetery on Leonard Street. That part will be sponsored by the American Legion, and followed by the American Legion will be selling delicious lunches down at the American Legion Hall on 9th Street. Hope you will be there. The other thing is the flag lowering, which is done by citizens of Southport, beginning at 7 o'clock on Memorial Day, every day until Labor Day. And the first group to do it is going to be the Sisters of Southport. Did it last year. Be there. Taps is played. It's a ceremonial lowering of the flag, and it's a very impressive ceremony.
Alderman Carroll. Alderman Marcelo.
Yes, sir. I want to put in a shameless plug for the Southport Citizens Fire Academy. The fire department does 2 citizen fire academies each year. They are taking applications now for the fall Citizens Fire Academy, so be sure to sign up. I have just completed the course and received my certificate, and as a graduate, I now know I have firsthand experience and can recommend the Fire Academy to everyone. You will learn why seconds matter. You will gain an understanding of the evolution of firefighting in this country. You will learn about the operations of our fire department, get to try on turnout gear, go up 100 feet in the bucket on the ladder truck, and learn hands-on how to use a fire extinguisher. And you get to drive an ambulance and a fire truck, and I only drove over one cone. So don't miss this opportunity to spend time with members of our fire department and fellow citizens. Learn and have some fun. Please put the Fall Fire Academy on your schedule. It's a unique opportunity, and you will be glad you did.
That wasn't why
Thank
we
you,
need a new
Chief.
fire truck, is it?
No.
The
But
manager's
it might have been the old one we're replacing.
All right, the manager report.
Just a few quick things for the public. The comprehensive master plan survey, you have until June, so please take 5 minutes as you're drinking coffee in the morning and fill out that survey for us. Franklin Square Park survey is done May 30th, so while you have your second cup of coffee, you can do the next one. The Hurricane Expo is Monday. I cannot tell you how important it is that you attend this Monday night here in this building. We've all seen what's going on in this country with the weather. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting summer. Please attend. This is to help you stay safe. And lastly, the employee anniversaries, Jackie Smith in Public Services, 5 years. Kelly Tooley, 2 years in utility building. Jackson Francis, 2 years as a camp counselor, and Officer Eric Mahoney is a year. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, that brings us to the closed session. Okay. Yes. I'm going to read from this as the closed session for the North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, with privilege is hereby acknowledged. General policy matters may not be discussed in closed session, and nothing herein shall be construed to permit a public body to close a meeting that otherwise would be open merely because an attorney employed or retained by the public body is a participant. The public body may consider and give instructions to an attorney concerning the handling or the settlement of a claim, judicial action, mediation, arbitration, or administrative procedure. If the public body has approved or considered a settlement other than a malpractice settlement by or on behalf of the hospital. In closed session, the terms of that settlement shall be reported to the public body and entered into its minutes as soon as possible within a reasonable time after the settlement is concluded. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into closed session. It may be a bit. Before we come back out, I just want to give you a heads up, and this is for the attorney-client privilege issue. I thought you said I had to do you wanted to come out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we just had a change here that I need a motion to go do that.
So moved.
All in favor? Good. I'd like to bring us back into, no, I'm sorry. I'd like to entertain a motion to come out of closed session. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. That's the word I'm looking for. And I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.